If you go just research some of these parades that they have little children out there as well. As you see men and women or whatever they are, dressed in real skimpy outfits and different things like that.
I don't know how I feel about people walking around in society with guns, and when they're not trained or when they haven't been, just you have to go through a lot of scrutiny to get such a, once again, I'm going to use the word luxury. I mean, I know it's weird to use that about right, but I think when you're talking about something that could kill like dozens of people like that's where we're at now. So it's okay for us to amend, I think, specifically amendments. We have done that, and look at things a little bit differently as they currently stand.
The points I was doing was definitely in contrast to a lot of what Kent was saying, and even in contrast to what James was saying. But like, oh my goodness, we don't all hate each other. It's crazy. You can have an absolute disagreement with everything that was said, but you can't hate each other. You don't have to hate each other. It's possible. It's crazy. It's possible. Welcome to the Purple Political Breakdown. I am glad you are here, and I'm glad you are listening to today's podcast episode. My mission in each and every one of these episodes is to really focus on the solutions to some of the biggest questions and most controversial topics going on in our current society. I feel like most of these conversations are not truly being discussed in a more logical and respectful manner due to the political toxicity that goes on with both the left and the right, both the Democrats and the Republicans. In this podcast, I don't care about any of that. I am focused on the solutions. I'm focused on bridging gaps. If you want to join me on this journey, if you want to discuss some of the most important topics, if you are tired of the political toxicity and negativity from both sides, please support this channel, share the podcast, and go to my website, www.purplepoliticalbreakdown.com. I appreciate the support. I'll continue to make content, and hopefully we can start bridging these gaps and focusing on real issues going on in our world. Welcome to the Purple Political Breakdown. We are back with episode number 21, I believe. Man, 21 of these things with the new format. And today I have a little exercise that I'm going to go over where I know this is going to sound kind of crazy. I'm going to be arguing lefty talking points, debate points, whatever you want to say. But this is in reference to the exercise I'm doing today, where I will be going over lefty points, and my two guests will go over more centrist and far right points and see where we can come in terms of the discourse itself. And it's going to be very important to show that you don't need to be overly politically toxic, politically negative to have a productive conversation. Whether or not we agree by the end of the day, it doesn't matter, but I don't have to hate every single Trumper. Trumper doesn't have to hate every single blue-haired lefty. So it should be a very interesting conversation. Per usual, I'm going to do my review, the review that someone posted on Apple Podcasts. If you want to get shouted out for a review, make sure you leave a 5 stars. Hey, this is 5-star content worthy, so you can get shouted for a future episode, of course. So the review I have here is from MJ217. They said, I like what the host is creating on this podcast and adding some nuanced perspective into the conversation. Definitely one that I'm adding to my list to see how it grows and what else Riddell Lewis shares. Appreciate. As you can see, I'm doing more stuff with here. And if you guys want to show up for the live streams, and to add your own personal take too, feel free to do that as well. I stream every Monday for the podcast episodes, and now I'm starting getting into the stream business. So, trying to really put my foot in a lot of different areas. So, should be very interesting. And of course, this is going to be a great conversation. As of right now, you guys can go ahead, introduce yourselves, tell y'all where you're about, tell your podcast is about, all that great stuff.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is I got the soundboard over here too. I'm not gonna abuse that. I'm not gonna be disrespectful.
Okay, I need to get me a soundboard, not gonna lie.
But this is Big Baby is what I go by over on my channel here. It's a serious conversation, so we'll go James. We talk about a lot of sports, hip hop, politics, all those kind of stuff get talked about over there. We just try to give real authentic perspectives on real serious issues, because a lot of these things, similar, me and Reda had spoke about it previously, I don't really think the polarization with regular people is really there to the extent that gets portrayed in mainstream media. So I like to show those real life conversations happening with real people. So Gates, give it to us, baby. Oh, by the way, Sit in Politics.
Yes,
Find us Sit in Politics on all platforms, by the way.
yes, sir. My name is Kent Gates. The name of my channel is Gates Open Media. You can find me all over the place. You know what I mean? My channel right now mainly focus on sports, but we are branching off into other things such as some of the things James talked about, fitness, life legacy, entrepreneurship, different things, different ideas, and we're gonna go around and see what people say about those different topics. So yeah, that's about it.
All right, bad. And of course, if you guys, because this is a new thing I'm adding to them to add a little spice in terms of introductions, what is an interesting fact or opinion about yourselves that you guys want to elicit right now?
Yeah, interesting question. So for me, I would say everything that I do on my channel is all self-taught. Everything is hands-on. I do all the editing. I do just everything from the creation of the video, idea, all that stuff. I put my blood, sweat, and tears into it genuinely, and put a lot of time into it. I'm very proud of the channel. Not to make it an extra plug, but genuinely, right now in my life, something that I'm most locked in on is my YouTube channel specifically, but then all the other platforms I also am trying to build a presence on. So I can continue to have these kind of cool conversations. This is an awesome opportunity. Gate, you can go ahead, man.
Yes, sir. I will say, just to piggyback off of Big Baby there, he does be putting out stuff every day, y'all. With that being said, I'm kind of opposite of him. I'm trying to learn how to edit. I go live almost every time I go because I'm scared of editing. But that's something I have to learn. So yeah, and I'm from Polk County, baby. Anybody from Polk County, that's my thing.
Oh, hey,
bang.
I'm from
Yeah.
Marion, Indianapolis, if we're repping our cities and all that, but live in Florida.
All right, big bet. Speaking of Florida, that actually goes right in hand with my new segment after the introductions, what you need to know. And basically this is kind of like current news that is going on right now. And as of right now, I believe Florida is passing a bill or passed a bill. I think they're in the process of passing a bill in reference to oh my, don't if you guys know, you can let me know. But it's reference to like trans issues, I believe, in Florida. They're passing a bill when it comes to schools, I believe. Now I'm gonna have to fact check because I saw this, but I don't exactly remember what the bill says, and I don't like to misquote myself. And basically, the bill in reference to Florida is that they're banning gender transitions for children. So it goes right hand on what you're talking about. So this is something that Florida is starting to implement. I think they got it passed as of right now. There's also other stipulations in regards to transitioning for like adults, but the crux of the bill, the highlight of the bill is kids. It's illegal for kids to medically transition as of right now, it seems. So it's a very interesting kind of change. DeSantis is interesting in what he kind of implements. He's kind of made Florida the popular conservative state out of nowhere compared to like most states in America as of right now. So it's an interesting situation because the conversation of transitioning kids and its like moral efficacy has always been something to talk about. So what do y'all think about this new bill?
Yeah. So honestly, I think that this is a little less of a polarizing topic, especially for people in Florida in our own kind of like values that I would say throughout Florida. Because me being somebody that I would be moderate, but probably lean left. Definitely, according to Kent, he would say for sure I'm a liberal. But yeah, that's something that I'm a little iffy on. I'm not, fully ready to say that kids should be able to make those kind of decisions for themselves. Before they're adults. So, one thing that and this goes hand in hand with the Don't Say Gay bill and this, the one issue I do have is I think we have really pressing issues. And just like I said, this wouldn't be as a polarizing issue for the people of Florida. I don't know that this is as much of a problem in Florida, that kids are transitioning. I'm personally not seeing it in my community. So it kind of feels like a pander move. And it seems like rather than make the current situation better, a lot of his moves seem like they're focused on fighting these social wars that are going to benefit him during a presidential run potentially. So as somebody that's being represented by him currently, it's a little disappointing. But I'd love your opinion on it.
Well, me personally, I absolutely love it. I don't know if it's an actual big thing here in Florida where children are trying, or yeah, children themselves are trying to transition. But I do know that you got to think about it. You can't smoke till you're 21 now. You can't drink, till you're 21. So how can a child, you know, eh, like Dwayne Wade just moved out of the state of Florida supposedly, but where do we stop? Where do we start? What age? What age are we talking? I believe that if you're an adult out of school, hey, have at it, do whatever you like. But as a child, those things are being heavily influenced on children, and I personally don't like it. But like the other day, my son, he's a senior, he's about to graduate. He called me from school, and there's a girl who decided to be a boy that day. Goes into the boys' bathroom, and he called me. He said he had a big problem with it, so he went and told the guidance counselor,
He's,
whatever. It, huh?
I just think it's interesting, like that he stopped the school day and decided he needed to call you about that.
Yeah, and because he wanted my okay to make a fuss about it, and I was cool with it, to be honest. Nothing ever happened with it, but it's just a thing like that. If that person decided, okay, I'm a boy today,
Yeah,
walk into the bathroom, and then try to advance on my son, and then he says no, now this boy, now I'm gonna go back to being a girl, wants to claim the R word,
we could all
and
we could always create hypotheticals though, and then create and then live as if they exist, which that's what you're doing. You know what I mean? You're creating a hypothetical. And is that a more likely scenario than what happened? The person goes in there, uses the restroom, and bounces. You feel
To
me?
go off that real quick,
Yeah.
there's also a situation that has happened recently in reference to kind of the opposite scenario. So, in a gym locker room, where it's one of those classic gym locker rooms where they have showers, actually.
mm,
So, the freshman girls were showering, and a trans female went inside the gym locker room, went to shower, and she, whatever, was a senior. So, they were older, and then the girls were showering, and then they got completely naked in front of the freshman girls and with the junk at all. And the mother, obviously, when the mothers found out, they got super irritated, got super angry. So this is definitely a situation that's happened before, even on the other side. And having your freshman daughters get exposed to that was very upsetting for a lot of the parents, obviously. So it's an interesting conversation to have, but I can definitely say that when it comes down to it, it's never. I can never say. I can always say it will never be a comfortable situation to be okay. I'm just doing my business, and then someone from the opposite gender who has completely different genitalia than me comes inside, especially in a shower situation, and then just shows their
Yeah.
stuff like it's normal. It's like, oh, that's kind of weird. So
No, I
it's
don't think
tough.
I don't think that the expectation though should be when we're trying to make like social change for it to immediately feel comfortable and feel familiar, because there's a lot of times that we've had to make social change throughout that the people that immediately were experiencing the change weren't comfortable with it. So I don't like when we're putting this argument onto kids, I'm always much more sensitive to it, and I would probably tend to agree with you, so I'm playing more of a little bit of a devil's advocate there. But when it comes to adults, I think I probably do feel this way as far as like yeah, I just don't see any issue with the shit with the bathroom person, uh, restroom over
with it.
within as or whatever.
Have a general bathroom then. Just have a general bathroom where it doesn't matter what you identify as. Just go to that bathroom.
I mean, I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but I think through the extreme case where somebody goes through the trouble to present as the opposite sex, I mean, unless you're going to be really specific and I guess check, you know what I mean? Like check genitalia, or go up and I guess ask them like, hey, you know what I mean? Because there's always situations like that, I suppose, where I've met people and I'm like, okay, I'm not exactly sure their gender is ambiguous, regardless of whether they're transgender or not. But yeah, just mind your own business and let them go about their day. And if there's a problem, then I address the problem. But like to create problems, there's always these hypotheticals that I feel like we can
Yeah,
make.
Yeah,
as a
yeah.
God, me as a God.
Well, before we
We're
dive into this a little deeper, let's kind of start the conversation because we're already getting into the conversation at hand.
We
So, cut to kind of illustrate what the plan of action is today is that we're doing an exercise where we're all going to illustrate our points just like we just really did as of right now. And this is kind of trying to show the people that even though we vastly disagree with certain points, that we can have this discord and discussion and try to come with some type of resolution that at the very least we can all accept to a certain extent. I can't even guarantee that we'll come to a official compromise, but the point is that we don't have to be overly toxic, overly negative, and overly hateful just because the other side disagrees with the point I'm making. And for this exercise, obviously Ken is going to be kind of advocating for a more right wing type of point of view. James is more going to advocate for a center, but I mean he's leaning that left side. Not gonna lie, he's leaning that left a little bit. I've been seeing it. I'm seeing it so far. So he may go for the center for the most part though. And then my side, I'm definitely gonna be advocating for the left. I am not a lefty, but I think this is going to be productive for the point of the conversation because I know all the lefty talking points for the most part.
yeah.
Basically the same. Stop right there. Yes, this is a little mini ad. Don't skip. Don't skip. All I want to tell you right now is that at the end of the day, when it comes down to all the discussions I want to have, I want to be able to communicate with you, the audience. I want to be able to relay a message and receive a message from everyone and try to come up with these great solutions that I keep on talking about. So if you want to be part of the community, make sure you go to the website and sign up for not only the email list so you can get weekly emails from me for the podcast episode, informational sessions, all that great stuff, but also sign up to go on my Discord so you can be part of the discussions, debates on my live streams. So be sure to go to the website, www.purplepoliticalbreakdown.com, and go to the email list, sign up, and go to the Discord and join the server. Now back to the episode. Constantly.
To kind of like double down on what you just said, I think that part of this though, for the audience, you'll see like somebody like myself who people may identify me as somebody who leans left. There's a lot of things me and Ken are actually, and me and you are going to end up agreeing on, because I don't think that as far as like when you get a polarized image and like sensationalized image from mainstream media, somebody that just wants to keep you coming back, you know what I mean, and keep you in an echo chamber of like even more extreme views than what you even have. Most people land, I think, where I'm at, where it's like, hey, I'm not cool with the transitioning children. That's something I think we need more evidence there, and I think that's something that we need to be very sensitive about. But in reality, I like Kent already said it. He doesn't give a shit if people transition and they're adults. You know what I mean? Like, now he's a little bit more like, don't push it down my throat. I disagree with him on that point. I don't actually think that it's pushed down our throat in that way. I just think that you're not used to seeing it, and it's here now. So,
all right. Well, let's start off with that. Kind of going hand in hand with the trans stuff. I have 5 questions I'm going to be asking, very broad questions, and there's a lot of different routes to take in these questions themselves. But the first question is, what do we think about the LGBTQ community today in society? Whoever can go first can go first.
Yeah, you want to take this one first, brother?
Well, me personally, I don't condone it, don't agree with it. But as an adult, this is supposedly a free country, so you can do what you like to do. Leave the kids alone. That's where my biggest stance is. As you see, if you go just research some of these parades that they have little children out there as well. As you see men and women or whatever they are, dressed in real skimpy outfits and different things like that. Other than that, I mean, I can care less what those people do. Just don't try to force it on me. that I have to call you all these dumb pronouns and all that stuff there. To me, that makes no sense. They is multiple, plural, more than one. Um, so let's not start talking about chest feeding and men having a period. Men can have baby. That's where we're just going way too far, and that part is just ridiculous. I've heard stories. I have twin girls, and I've heard them tell stories about how their period was, and it's all this, how terrible it is, and then now all of a sudden this trans person wants to say that they can do that or whatever the case may be, but obviously we know they can't do that. So leave
All
the
right.
kids alone and don't push it down my throat.
Let me save you. You're drowning right now.
No, I'm here.
I'm playing with you. I'm playing with you. No, I mean, honestly,
That guy that can
so I mean, once again, I think like a typical moderate perspective for most people that I speak to, and this I share this opinion. I do think that there's definitely been some like radicalism in the LGBT community. There's no doubt. You know what I mean? And I acknowledge that as somebody that typically supports. I support.
everything.
Gay history being taught in school. That's something we talked about on the podcast. I don't see an issue with that. So
History.
what was that?
A history?
No, gay history. When we
Oh,
were talking on the pod, and you're like, they're talking about they're teaching gay in school, and then we looked it up, and I'm like, they're just teaching about gay people and like what they did for the cause, and that I'm in support of, just like I'm in support of every other group being represented with their heroes through their own civil rights struggle. So it's like, that's just what we're talking about. I'm comfortable with that. I do think it's a situation, and this is where I think the uncomfortable part comes, is like, it's just, we're not used to it. I, even myself, to be honest, like, I don't have anybody that I would consider a friend that's gay. So, I mean, I don't think that was an intentional choice, but it's something that for whatever reason, I haven't surrounded myself with people that, or anybody that I know of that is openly gay. Why is that? I don't know. I think just we're just not used to being around it. You know what I mean? So it makes us uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable when we see it on TV, but I think it's the right thing to do, because exposure, I think, is the cure to ignorance almost always. So yeah, expose us to like mad normal people that are gay, which exists.
Do y'all think that
that's normal.
Oh, shit.
Not normal.
in terms of
All right, brother, I got you. Let's get rid of.
in terms of the radical thing, do you think that the LGBTQ community is more radical than the radical Christians that exist in America?
No, not necessarily. I would say in a lot of ways, it mirrors that, though, which I think could be harmful. A lot of like for a long time, atheism was like kind of went hand in hand, not necessarily with the left, but I guess the left went hand in hand with atheism, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? I don't know if you get what I'm saying there, but either way, most atheists that I knew were leaning Democrat. So a lot of the criticism that when I was growing up that you would hear would be against like the evangelical Christians and their ideology, and it being based off things that more faith based. And then also trying to pass laws based off things that are based in faith and not based in fact. And I think a lot of times, yeah, the LGBT community can cross that line as well. I don't think that necessarily, represents, most of them. But I do definitely think that there's a loud minority there of people that are radicalized. And, like recently there was what was it? Trans Violence Day, right? Gates, you were telling me about, where it was like Trans Violence Day was playing. I'm like, what the hell does that even mean? Yeah, that's definitely those motherfuckers. They're radical as hell. But, there's definitely
that either.
Yeah. Well, okay. Either way. Well, recently a day passed where there was. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think it's Trans Day or something. I don't remember. I do remember talking about it, but I don't remember exactly what it is. And from my perspective, you have extremists on all levels: Christians,
Sure.
Jews, Muslims, LGBTQ, just the BLM, whatever you want to say. You have extremists, so they're going to act extreme. Unfortunately, they only talk for that small group of people within their ideology or whatever it is that they do. Unfortunately, and I think from my understanding, and I could be wrong, but in history, you've seen more extremists of like a Christian faith or something like that than you have from the LGBTQ community. And I think they have the LGBTQ community. They're more so fighting for human rights, which is good in a way. I don't agree what they're fighting for in within that human rights though. But these extreme Christians, or they're just lost people. They'll take one thing out the Bible or something and go to new, you know what I'm saying? Just go to extremes with it. And in that way, I think they're probably worse
Mm,
than the LGBTQ what community.
So
curveball.
if they are worse, then why does the right care so much about what the LGBTQ community is doing, and they never really talk about what the crazy right Christians are doing?
Well, I mean, like I say, just over history, over time. But they care because it doesn't follow the Bible. So most of them, I mean, some people just they like what they like. They don't follow the Bible. They can care less. But on the other hand, most, not most, but the other part, they do care what the Bible says, and that's where it goes into some of your other topics you're going to talk about. But
I have an
that's where
alternative
But some of the
if I
crazy
could jump.
righties don't care about what the Bible says either. They
well,
just
that's what I was saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So it would make sense to
Um,
call them out more so than the LGBTQ community because they're like falsely um stating what the Bible means and then using it in destructive purposes.
So
it, it-
could I respond to that? I think the reason that they're not calling it out is kind of obvious, but then also really insidious, which is that they're not, that's their voter base. So they don't want to offend their voter base, regardless of if they're wrong or not. A lot of politics and why it has become so polarizing is because they're just echo chambers that we can craft for ourselves. And politics, not I'm not talking about internet politics. I'm talking about politics. Politics has become that, where it's just pandering. So they're not gonna risk losing an election by saying what's right, which I think is probably right. Although I think both are extremely harmful. I mean, I think radicalized LGBT ideology is extreme. Like it's kind of like and I think Kent, you were kind of making that point. For how long we've been impacted by Christian ideology, it's hard to compare the two. But if you're talking about today, I would probably say the opposite, which is hilarious that we land on that. I would probably say that the LGBT community is
well,
probably more today.
if we're
Yeah.
just talking today, yes, I agree.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Over time, I agree with you, obviously, because mad people died about Christianity.
Mm.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Rest,
Uh,
rest in
It's
peace.
it's interesting in terms of like which one's more radical today. I mean, for the most part, they definitely are both very radical. I think the far right extremist probably has more uh support, more of a foundation to be radical than the
Mm.
LGBTQ radicals, and they also tend to be smarter with it in terms of their what they do as well. So in those situations, you could say that these people
I
just
don't know.
you
I
don't
don't
There's
know
agree
more.
with
'cause
that?
I think the LGBTQ community, what they do is they intertwine themselves with everything. You know what I mean? Like they
Mm.
intertwine themselves with BLM. And then they piggyback off of that. But I'm like, well, what else? Y'all, you can do everything. You can vote. Not vote, I'm sorry. I meant you can get married now. Um, and you have all the rights that the
Name one
non,
thing.
huh?
You name one
I
thing.
mean, no thing, yeah. Well, that was the main thing because I knew people that I used to work with who couldn't get benefits from
Yeah.
their,
What about discrimination
yeah.
against Thomas? Do you
Yeah, I
think
mean,
that's
the discrimination is pretty apparent considering how many people don't even want to kind of elicit an LGBTQ person with their proper pronouns. Like it's just pronouns for the most part, and it helps assure their identity that they've been struggling with their entire life. So in those situations, with the with in terms of what they want, sure, voting and marriage and all that, everything that every person should have anyway should be there. But the other people also have assurance in terms of their identity. A lot of people in LGBTQ can't even get that. So what's wrong with that?
Well, Because you're talking about pronouns. You're talking about calling them, they. Like, why? Why are we changing? It doesn't even make sense. I don't even know how to explain it. I don't even know what to say because it doesn't make sense. Because you can be, I can literally, there was a bodybuilder, you can look it up. He said he was a girl that day. He didn't change anything about his appearance. He went into the weight competition, broke the record, and walked out of there. Like, I can go play, let LeBron James or, one of these guys go play female basketball just because they're a girl today, and then go play the male game. Oh, I'm a man today. Nope, I'm a girl today. And you can literally just switch it like that. There's no nothing.
Why don't we work towards something that is more workable for all of us rather than say the most extreme example doesn't work, therefore we're not even going to try.
All the time. That extreme example happens all the time.
It also doesn't happen all the time. It actually doesn't happen way more than
it happens a lot. You got these girls who went to college on swim scholarships. Now they losing to a guy. You got all kind of stuff, man.
Yeah, I feel you.
Well,
that shouldn't be allowed.
But at the end of the day, I mean, if the person wants to participate in those things based off their own individual expression, shouldn't they just be allowed though?
Yeah, they create another category. Right now, you got Barry Bonds can't get into the Hall of Fame. Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, all these guys because they were said. Lance Armstrong because they were said to have been using steroids basically, and it was an unfair advantage to the other guys who supposedly was not using them. So now you got a man. Yes, you take the chemicals, the estrogen, and all that, but who says your levels got down all the way to be a female?
So there's always natural biological advantages to a certain extent anyways that we don't police.
But that's natural different.
In a lot of cases when you hop in here and like I said, my only issue really, because I think sports is a nuanced situation. I think it is pretty complicated, but when you use the extreme example, you lose me. In a lot of these cases, these sports leagues and things like that require that the person be on testosterone replacement or hormone replacement rather for 2 years. So it's not like you just come in one day and you say, hey, I'm a guy today, hey, I'm a woman today. You have to be going through the transition for 2 years. So you are losing a lot of your mass. Go ahead.
No, that happened though. It happened.
I'm sure it has happened in some cases, but my whole point is when we realize those are issues, rather than just say, oh, well, let's just shut it all down, it doesn't work. Why don't we correct those issues? And like I said, with sports, yeah, go ahead.
Let's correct them and put them in their own category.
I will say that I will
be a male. I used to be a female. Put them in their own category.
I will say that also
we have our own category. The females can have their own category. The males can have their own category. The used to be males can have their own category, and the used to be females can have their own category.
I have two responses to that, and the first response I have is that when it comes down to these examples of these, women that or men that transition to women who've won these competitions, there's not a lot of people succeed. Most of them are not even on the radar in the first place. Like, I mean, we can talk about, combat sports if you want. I think that's harder to kind of argue, but at the very least, most sports, there's very few, especially who transition much, much earlier, who actually make any type of impact in terms of sports. And then my second point is that creating a different category for trans men or trans females will be nearly impossible because there's just not enough people. There won't be any money to bring in there. So it's like these people, they transition based on their identity, but they still love sports. So can they never play sports? Is that the solution? Even though they know their identity is wrong, but they still love to play sports? Are they just not allowed to play sports anymore?
Yeah, they can play with their biological, where they were born, what they were born as, so to speak, or they can play in that other category. If they can't play one of the
So
two.
hold up real quick. Well, I want to ask you a specific question of what you're laying down. So then a woman on testosterone would play against other women who are not actively on testosterone? By what you just said. They could play with their previous sex, you just said. So then a woman that is... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
When she's on testosterone, no, she's not going to be able to compete against regular women because she's on testosterone. So now she's disqualified.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, when her levels come back down to normal, then yeah, she can compete. Just like the girl, just I don't know, anybody who's used steroids, they use the steroids, then they get suspended for however long, then they come back and hopefully they're not on steroids when their levels come back down to normal.
All right. Well, I think we're going to move on to the next topic because, you know, there's a lot of them. So I want to make sure we have enough time for each one separately. But real quick, I'm going to elicit my actual true thoughts about the matter of the topic, because I don't want people thinking those are my true thoughts in reference to what I was just saying. You know, it's tough. People need reassurance that even though if you keep on saying it, they're going to still think, oh yeah, this guy's a crazy lefty. It's like, I do not want to be put with a crazy lefty. So for the most part, there is some there's some truth to what I said, though. Like, obviously, I'm not going to say things that I don't have a semblance of, like, truth in terms of the things that I said. In reference to, like, the LGBTQ radicals and the Christian radicals, I think they're both kind of, you know, BS for the most part. They both suck in terms of their radical point of views. Like, both of them have no value in terms of finding actual solutions. And I do think that sometimes the conservatives like get overly worried about what's going on with their community. But at the same time, in terms of how they impact kids, which is like the big thing, and how they impact social media, because that's their influence, that's kind of like trying to bar their influence on social media. The Christians, they just do everything kind of behind the counter, and that can be a discussion in terms of the extremes. But in terms of the LGBTQ, their impact is young individuals and social media. So that's why they have that discussion point. On reference to the pronouns, for the most part, you know, I'll call you whatever you want, but I do think it kind of gets ridiculous. I was filling out a job application. Let me tell you what the pronouns on this job application said. Because it was actually crazy. I was looking at like, no way, this actually says all of this stuff that I'm seeing right now.
Know the type of job too?
Yes, it was on a job application in terms of pronouns you want to choose from. So the pronouns on this application was the obvious ones: she, her, hers; he, him, his; they, them, theirs. And I'm like, okay, whatever, you know, the standard ones. If you are on the spectrum, sure, I'll call you a they. But it doesn't stop there. It's zeers, see, sim, seers, kos, xi, sim, xiers, ver, vers, kits. Like,
give an inch, they take a mile.
Like, at some point, like, sure, you know, be called whatever you want if that kind of assures your identity. I don't really care for the most part, but at the same time, we need to, like, there's no point to have those type of pronouns. You're just having them to have them at this point.
Well,
like,
imagine you got fired, call somebody Kit.
Say that again.
Imagine you got fired because you didn't call somebody Kit, or got sued, even worse. Yeah.
Yo, in Canada, that definitely would happen. Canada will definitely fire you for that. Canada be wild.
California, I think California identifies 47 different genders or something like that.
Hey, California is trying to be Canada. They trying. And my last thing I want to say in reference to what was the last point? The kind of the sports stuff. I do think that one I actually think is one of the hardest solutions to find, because the last thing I said I do think is a tough thing in reference to the people who want to play sports but also actually have gender dysphoria and need to transition. Like, what about them? But at the same time, this is such a small percentage of people, and most trans people don't play sports anyway. So it's like there is an issue here. It's hard to find the solution, but the percentage of the people actually affected by this issue is extremely small. Extremely small. So
I agree. That's a reasonable take. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with it. Go ahead, Gates.
In high school, I wanted to play. I think it was. I wanted to try to play tennis, along with I think it was doing basketball or football season. I can't remember, and I had to pick. So I couldn't play tennis. It is what it is. You got to make a decision. Do you want to play sports?
You want to be a boy or
be in, that community?
You're just othering. You're doing. Yeah, go ahead.
What do you think about people participating in like club sports and like intramurals? Is that fine?
Well, it depends on how they got it set up at the school. It's the same thing, in my opinion. If they got it where everybody's commingling, where girls and boys are playing together, all right, well, everybody play.
What if just the little kid gets trucked by another kid on testosterone? That's what I'm saying.
Hey, man.
Over. Doof.
Hey, man, that's tough. You need to get in the gym, do some push-ups. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. That's what life was about. That's what the playground was about.
See what's gonna happen? That little girl in that bathroom, when that big old man come in there, he's just gonna come in.
All right. Chill. Super dark. What the fuck?
My daughter is 19 years old. They literally look like they 13.
Yeah, I feel it.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the next topic of the conversation. This goes hand in hand with my recent episode. The recent podcast episode I did, I went and broke down the entirety of the constitutional carry situation, because now that more than half the states in America are now permitless carry, I decided to do some research and gotta go over, like, is this even a good thing for America if like more and more states are becoming permitless carry? So, So basically, we're going to talk about not only that, but basically, what are our thoughts about, guns and the Second Amendment and mass shootings in America? So, James, you can go first. You go first this time.
Yeah, I got a point of view on this for sure. So is this some, and I pride myself on being willing to evolve my point and evolve my mindset on things. If you would have asked me 5 years ago, 3 years ago, I would have had pretty much a libertarian point of view on it, which may have been close to constitutional carry, which I would have had the point of view of it's our right, and the whole to defend ourselves from a tyrannical government, so on. I felt very strongly about those points, and I still do feel strongly about those points, although I think that it is time for us to consider stiffer gun control in general. And I think just something reasonable, more of a common sense gun control where, background checks, I think, should be required. There maybe should be a weight on when you get the gun. Maybe you should, if you're feeling, what was that?
I thought all that was normal before, but anyway, my bad.
It is pretty normal before in some states, but it's not universal. So gun control is not universal. State by state, it varies pretty greatly. So, So I mean, that would be my perspective. Something just common sense. Maybe some kind of mental health kind of clearance. I think makes sense. And that could come along with a background check. So Kent, I'm open to, or Riddell, whoever. If any of you guys disagree.
Yeah, for me, it's tough because I do believe in being able to carry. Where it messes me up is, I went and took the class, my wife and I, a few years ago. But if you don't know how to, honestly, I never went down to the place to get my actual permit. But if you don't know how to use the gun, you don't know how to, not put your trigger finger, your finger in the thing. They tell you to put it outside. Basic things like that. Like I think you need try. I'm sorry.
I agree.
You should have a little bit of dog right now. I mean, goodness.
A class makes a lot of. That's a great point. I think a class added on to what I said makes a lot of sense, just for general gun safety and gun control, how to store it. I mean, a lot of gun deaths end up happening with people getting their hands on somebody else's gun in the home.
Word shot himself. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying he didn't know how to handle a gun, but he shot himself. When you just say, "Oh, you 18, whatever the age is, oh, let me just go get a gun," man. Like, I'm for guns. I'm for people who want guns to have guns. I'm not so honestly, I'm not so worried about the government for the most part. I'm worried about the criminals who don't care anything about being able to have a gun because they're going to have a gun.
Right.
That's my biggest thing on being able to have a gun if you want to. But also, I believe you should have to have some type of responsibility on how to handle the gun, how to handle it, how to use it, how to load it. Like when my wife and I, we went, if she just went and bought, oh, I'm gonna get a revolver. When we went down there to shoot, she couldn't even squeeze the trigger. She wasn't strong enough. So she needs something that's, somebody to teach her, hey, this is a better
Sure.
gun for you. It's smaller, something you can handle compared to a revolver or any type
Yeah.
of gun that you can't handle. And then when you shoot it, you shoot that's too strong. You know what I'm saying? You shooting at the person, but you might shoot upstairs or something. So I think you have to do something and
I think
just
common
not guns.
I think common sense it should be treated as differently than buying a pair of pants or differently. For example, I'm a medical cannabis user in Florida, so I went through the trouble to obtain a license to get that. I keep up with my licensing. I had to have a reason to get it. You know what I mean? So it's like, uh, yeah, I'm not for the gatekeeping, and to a certain extent, you do put, you kind of gatekeep a little bit when you're putting like you're gatekeeping monetarily, you know what I mean, because not everybody can afford to whatever might go into a class or this or that. But it's a big enough purchase, and what I mean by that is not like money wise, but a serious enough purchase that I don't think you're asking a lot. Like we ask people to go learn how to drive before you get behind a fucking car, and we say you could do that, you know what I mean. So all these really serious luxuries, but then at the end of the day, this is where I kind of like, I have to, look in the mirror. It's in this country, it's considered a right. It's not a
Right.
luxury. So, you know,
So why do we even need guns in the first place? Like, for the most part, we a lot of people talk about it, and sure, we got the Second Amendment. And people's interpretation of the Second Amendment for the most part tends to be wrong anyway. So why do people care about having guns? Why do people want guns? Why do we even need guns in the first
First,
place?
it's safety. I mean, for me, it would be something safety. Some people like to hunt, but like I took a jujitsu class, and I'm literally 246 pounds. You can go get a guy that's 150 pounds and fold me up quick. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not
that's
about
what's
to get out there and try to fight somebody or protect my family from somebody. I mean, I will if I don't have a gun, but if somebody look at some of these big ass bodybuilders or big old just giant people,
all with the.
you think
You remember what that eighth grader did to Cat Williams?
yeah,
All that I got to keep that fire on me.
yeah. So I mean, just think about a small petite girl or a small guy and some guy
Wouldn't
comes
a
up and
taser or pepper spray just be good enough?
no, no, that
Why?
tells you got to touch them. You got to touch them. No, I am. I'm not trying to get nowhere close to you.
Well, then paper spray.
Mm.
You can have both. The pepper spray will 100% keep them in distance, but if they get close, you have your taser. I
There's
don't
people
like in
been.
that situation. It's like you want to deter the violence. The gun will 100% deter it, but the gun will also kill the person. So it's like I don't think there's many situations that there's a big brawly guy coming at you that you need a gun to protect yourselves in that situation. I think it's pretty rare in those circumstances, and there's no
I don't.
guarantee that you can even get your gun out and defend yourself.
I mean, yeah, that's correct, but I want it there. I mean, I think there are plenty of situations where a bully, a big guy, or some. I'm pretty sure there's more than that's been documented. Like
Oh,
you see stores where a guy has just started causing trouble out of nowhere, and then now people have to defend themselves.
well,
I
other scenario. So also, in the scenario where you have the pepper spray, what if the person that you're trying to deter has a gun because they're a criminal?
yeah,
This is
Well,
for Riddell, really.
in that situation, right? You're definitely at their mercy. Because even if you were to pull out your gun, there's again no guarantee you'll get the gun out in time to protect yourselves. And second, once you do flash your gun, they will shoot you immediately and you will die. So the chances of you even protecting yourself in that situation is very low if they already have the gun out to kind of commit violence. Now there is a possibility that you'll be able to kind of fight them off, but the best situation
Mhm.
if someone's pointing a gun at you is to, either run away or just give them what they want, not to
I
fight
think
them.
you kind of making it like black and white. I don't think it's that black and white. If I have a gun, you have a gun, you pull the gun out on me, there might be an opportunity where you slip up and look somewhere else and I can pull my gun out and shoot you. You know
Or
what I'm
you
saying? You
shoot,
run away, now I'm getting
shot,
shot in the back.
and it's not fatal.
Uh,
Say it. There's a lot of ways you can get shot and not get killed right off the bat, and possibly.
yeah, and you make it sound like everybody just gonna die if they got shot. I don't agree with that. Pop
Well,
got shot
sure,
5.
they might not get die, but they're obviously the gun is meant to kill the person. Like there's a chance you won't die, but if they hit you anywhere around the chest, around the liver, around the neck, around the head, most likely you're gonna die. I mean, that's probably what's gonna happen
I
unless you
mean,
get
yes,
immediate medical attention or someone has a tourniquet. But the likeliness of
so
that is impossible, more than likely.
So well, so we're done with the thing that I proposed earlier with the criminal, and this is the reason that I think this is valid, because in a lot of ways I wouldn't like to accept that argument, but I think with guns already being such a part of our culture, I wonder if it's a little bit too late to put the genie back in the bottle with America on this. There's already so many guns in circulation, legitimately and illegitimately in America, that if people are using them for their own defense, it's a lot to ask all of your basically law-abiding citizens to turn in their guns, when we all know that how like there's ever I'm not gonna say everybody has a gun, but a lot of people have a gun in Florida anyways. But right now it's constitutional carry. But then another thing, by the way, I think this is where I would probably amend my perspective on it. I'm pretty comfortable with people having guns in their home. I don't know how I feel about people walking around in society with guns, and when they're not trained or when they haven't been, just you have to go through a lot of scrutiny to get such a once again, I'm going to use the word luxury. I mean, I know it's weird to use that about right, but I think when you're talking about something that could kill like dozens of people like that's where we're at now. So it's okay for us to amend, I think, specifically amendments. We have done that, and look at things a little bit differently as they currently stand. So I don't know.
I think also there needs to be something where, look, if you have a gun, I mean, now constitutional carry now. Oh man,
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know.
just whatever. I don't agree with that. That's nuts.
Yeah,
I said, that's
Yeah,
yeah.
so
I don't.
my response to that is that I think once we recognize that society doesn't need guns in the first place, like inherently we don't need guns. If the utopian kind of ideology was to be kind of broadly uh branched out to the entire country, a more safer country is a country without guns at the end of the day. Um and I think once we recognize that guns is not the end all be all, then we can make sure that we're putting stipulations in place to make sure at the very least we do have a gun country, that we make it at the very least safer when it comes to guns. Not make it where more than half the states now have a constitutional carry and most people could just walk around with a gun at any point. And that doesn't, I don't see how giving more people the access to use
Well,
guns in a public area is safe. Like recently in Texas, this dude just got out of his car and just started shooting people. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell? Like, what are we doing? Like, why are we just? And
Yeah.
that's a constitutional carry state. Like, is the idea that the constitutional carry is gonna? Oh, this guy's gonna see the guy who pulls out his gun and he's gonna pull out his gun and shoot him? No, that's not what's gonna happen the majority of the time. You're gonna run away
so
the moment you see someone pull out a gun.
this is what I think. Also, there's a country where they don't have guns, but they just go around stabbing people. So that
The UK,
England.
you know. Well, you
um,
can kill a lot
but
less
this is
people
what I.
with knives.
Well, you right, but they stab a lot of people though.
Yeah,
But
it hurts
this is
way
what
more.
It depends if man's is.
this is what I think. I think a person, any person, they do these mass shootings, right? Obviously, nobody's agree with that, but they should torture those people. I don't care what, nothing. They should flat out torture them.
Yeah.
Just pull a finger off, And I mean, don't let me, yeah, oh yeah, just straight up torture those people. And I guarantee less people will be doing it.
Yeah, there's an amendment against that. So
they need to break that amendment because they didn't give these people a chance to live. So therefore, they should torture them.
I actually saw a story. This ex convict was talking about his story with like mass shooters that he saw in prison, and his story was basically the first mass shooter wasn't a mass shooter necessarily, but he was a kid. He brought a gun in school and he killed his teacher. So I don't think he killed the students, but he killed his teacher. He went to jail. He repented. He found God, and now he tries to be an advocate for good things. Now that's not where the story ends. He has two more people that were mass shooters. One of them killed kids, like he killed a lot of kids, and now he's basically the bitch boy in prison. So that's your torture right there, being the bitch boy in prison, because you know what happens to them when they're in prison. So
yeah,
they're gonna have a horrible time.
But he need to be coming back missing limbs. Just pull it off.
I mean, let's just say he gets constantly R-word in prison. That's what happens to him.
But I still don't think that's enough torture.
It's basically
you're like randomly just taking people's lives. Like, come on, man. Like,
it's basically.
I feel what you're saying, but
also a lot of these mass shooters also kill themselves. Like they make sure they shoot themselves in the head before they go in.
Yeah. Well, if I can get one of them, come in.
Pussies. Yeah.
And everything. You going through excruciating pain, and then they're gonna kill you. Then you get the electric chair or whatever they give you. Fire squad.
There you go, something like that. But I mean, honestly, I'm against the death penalty. Period. To be honest, I have a pretty strong moral feeling on that. But I'm open to we can talk about other things. That's not on the list.
I'm just saying they killing people. I know it's not eye for an eye, but man.
No, but listen, but as the government has, and we really, if we're being good citizens, we need to reconcile what our feelings are, what we want to do. We want to kill people, and what really should happen to those people. It's not always the same thing. I can, of course, I can imagine a scenario in which a crime could happen onto me or a family member where I would, of course, want the person to die. But is that the actual ethical way to handle that? I don't think that actually is.
What do you do in war? You killing people in war.
I don't know that
war they kill people.
To be honest, but I mean
there are POWs though, and POWs exist, and you're not allowed to kill them like ruthlessly or anything.
But those POWs, but I mean, they kill people when we go to war.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
I mean, people died and all the time.
We're not co-signing war. You know what I mean? I'm not sitting here saying like, "Hey, I love war and war is cool, but we shouldn't kill people." Like, what the fuck? I don't think either of those things should be handled. I don't think that we should be at a point where we're handling things through violence, aside from a scenario where it's in self-defense potentially.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I'm just saying, but it happened. That's all. I mean, I wouldn't want people.
Bro, what are we talking about? All right. Yeah.
Hey, you need that machine?
That's good one. Hey, pain.
Heal up. Pull another one off.
All right.
All right. Deviate from my lefty persona right now. I will say that pain is probably the best deterrent for anything. Period. I mean, that's just factually true.
Yeah.
Not death. Not death. Pain is the biggest deterrent. 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean a lot of these people are. I don't want to say the word, but the S word, you know what I mean? They already want to die to begin with. So a lot of times they end up offing themselves, or like it's that by police officer. So I agree with you. Yeah, that's not necessarily the way to even punish them. And to quote your book, Kent, or not your book, but God's book, where he had, who was it? Well, he had Cain. He was like, yo, you're going to live 1,000 years after you killed your brother. You know what I mean? I'm not going to kill you. You're going to live on this earth for 1,000 years and feel that. So it's like, I always feel like Yeah, I feel like that's a way more powerful punishment than letting them just take the easy way out if you can avoid that. You know what I mean? But
Well,
nobody should die.
That's why they're not getting the easy way out. They are getting tortured.
Yeah, you're talking about.
I mean,
Yeah,
I think I don't agree. Inherently, I don't agree with like the federal government or the system torturing prisoners because you can never check that. That's the problem. Because you always have to realize, okay, what power are we giving the federal government, or how do we check to make sure it doesn't go overboard? And that's important. So in this
And used
situation,
against-
in that scenario, you can't go overboard. But I'm not talking about regular, whatever they got in place now. Y'all keep all that. I'm just saying these mass shooters. That's the only people I'm talking about.
Well, yeah, you just said you. I personally like. I think mass shooters are bad, but I think pedophiles are equally as bad. But in terms of, I think to kind of coincide,
they didn't kill the person.
I still think it's equally as bad. To coincide with to coincide with what your point is, just have the prisoners tell the public what they do to these people. That's enough, I think. Just tell them.
Oh, there you go.
No,
they got to do that when they a neighborhood. Why not? Why should they have to tell their cellmates and their cell neighbors?
Hey man, once you realize, okay, if I do a mass shooting, I'm gonna become a bitch boy. Nah, he's getting beat up constantly, getting R-word constantly, and turned into a bitch boy. Like that is a horrible existence.
And metaphorically getting his arms ripped off, to your point, every fucking day, brother. So yeah, I think that suffice. I mean, don't be wrong. Like, there's nothing that can bring the people back. So that's really, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, there's always going to be a hole there. But, you know.
Yeah. Well, to go into the next question, let's go into a little bit more of a personal one. What do we think about Donald Trump? You know, I'm gonna go first as the extreme lefty here.
Okay.
Donald Trump is extremely sexist. He's a sexist individual. He hates women for the most part. We see it. I mean, there's a reason why he's currently in at court, because he doesn't even respect his wife enough not to fuck other women. Like, come on, let's be honest. So Donald Trump is a sexist person. I mean, all the things he says about women is kind of coincide.
Was he supposedly married?
Who?
Was he married when he allegedly messed with Stormy Daniels?
I believe
was he married at that time?
I mean, you can say alleged all you want. We know it happened. And I will say that Donald Trump also, in terms of, like, he's more talk than bite at the end of the day. He's a big chatter. He's an entertainer. He doesn't really do anything when it comes to being in presidency. He hasn't done anything. Like, there's no big policies that he's passed that helped the society. So Donald Trump is a fraud. He just talks a lot, and his impact is felt. He's an entertainer. He entertained people so much they raided the White House and killed people. So it's like, okay, great, amazing. So Donald Trump, you know, terrible person.
Yeah.
Terrible president. Worst president.
Worst president. I don't know if I would go as worst president.
You didn't see those tape when they let the people into the Capitol, did you?
Yeah, okay.
You didn't see the Donald
FBI informants trying to say, hey, let's go. What they were saying? Let's go something. And then the people, the real Trump fans, called him out. You know what I'm saying?
Are you saying that you're not giving blame to Trump at all? That for January 6th?
No, I'm not giving no blame to Trump. No.
Hell no.
If the FBI, Antifa, BLM, all those people infiltrated that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Right. And then Ray Epps. Where's Ray Epps?
Where is
prison? They got the guy with the horn thing on his head, but you see video of them letting him in the doggone Capitol, showing him different rooms. Oh, let's come over here. The police. Then Trump also said, he asked Nancy Pelosi, do you need me to call the National Guard? No. Do you need extra security? No, we got it. What? Yeah. But no, it's all Trump fault. Man, please.
Stop so you're saying no Trump supporters went to January 6th. It was all everybody else.
No, I'm not saying no. I didn't say that. There was there was Trump supporters there, obviously, but they got infiltrated and they got with the BLM, Antifa, and FBI, those guys were breaking into the doggone thing. And then I'm pretty sure you had some extremists, like we talked about earlier, that went on in there as well.
Okay,
Fire.
like I think for the most part, I mean, if you want to argue that they were infiltrated, sure, but there
It
was
definitely
Trump
was.
supporters.
That's a fact.
There were Trump supporters,
Fact.
and the Trump supporters 100% did cause violence in that day, and that was because of Donald Trump. He was the cause.
That was not because of no Donald Trump.
All right, okay. Why I wanted to go second, man. You done messed up the order. I was supposed to go second. You were supposed to go crazy at the. Well, look, I feel like a decently nuanced view on this with Donald Trump, because there are things I like, specifically like, so one, I like the feeling of patriotism that he pushed forward. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of times that got kind of co-opted in a negative way, obviously, with something like the white nationalist groups specifically, like Proud Boys and shit like that. But in general,
times.
What was that?
He denounced them 30 times. But
okay,
anyway.
but he hesitated, which is true, but that's fine. Either way, so damn, what came fucking my train of thought? Coming in here defending this white man, fuck Donald Trump, like YG said.
That's my dog.
I'm playing. It was patriotism. Yeah. No, I did actually. So I really did appreciate that he was. I think Obama did this as well, but I don't really feel like, there's much a pride in the country when I hear Biden speak, and there's almost like a disdain in a way for like what it is to be America, and like some of America's past, which is, and some of it is reprehensible, but a lot of it is great, and there's a lot to be proud of. And in some of in some of our darkest times, I think that's what we forget, is that at the end of the day, regardless of anything, religion, race, or anything, if you're looking to somebody in the country, most likely you're looking at, a fellow American, and that's something to come together over. And I can get deeper into that, but I want to let you guys.
How is Donald Trump supporting patriotism when he's denouncing the election? Because at the end of the day, when it comes down to the most important part of American politics is voting for your representative. Now, because of Donald Trump, moving forward, anytime a Republican doesn't get their way, they're going to say fraud. The election is fraud. And you know what's going to happen? More people are not going to vote. So it's actually not helping voting. It's not helping election. It's not helping the trust of America. Actually, patriotism is getting worse, because now people are saying, "Oh yeah, all of our government is a bunch of corrupt individuals who frauded the election." And even if I'm going to grant you that potentially that the election was fraud, Trump still would have lost. He still would have lost the election. So it wouldn't have mattered anyway.
They had more votes than voters. Matter of fact, dumb dude, I don't even like him no more. But anyway, Crowder, they had him going to addresses. He going to addresses that don't even exist. Middle parking lots that some people triple voted out of one house. They got parking lots out there that was an address.
Are you saying that's never happened in any election where people did like false votes here and there?
When did they prove it though? When did they
Trump is the first one to care about it.
Also, they said they were sending people home, but no, when the Republicans went home, the Democrats were still there counting votes. Man, come on. They got more votes than voters. So even if it's for Biden or against Biden or for Trump, whatever the case may be, they should have redid the whole damn thing, because they're cheated.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I don't think that questioning the election is immediately something un-American to do. I mean, we're one of the countries in the world that you actually can do that, and then you shouldn't, anyways, be under threat of like being assassinated by your opposition. So I think that is kind of actually a uniquely American thing. Now, I will agree with your point in this way, but I'd point to something else, and I think that just in general, the murkiness and it wasn't a smooth transition of power in general. So I think even outside of the election fraud stuff, I think there's other things that he did that just he should have been focused on making sure that all of his followers understood that, hey, we're going to do this. I think it's bullshit. I'm going to fight it however I can. I may still say that it's bullshit, but at the end of the day, this is America. It's a civilized country. We're going to pass power. And like you had Ken, and you could school me on this and shit like that. But you had people who were his followers talking about that he's going to be reinstated and that this wasn't even like the real president shit. Like all that thing, all those things that I think were commonly held beliefs, at least on the internet with Trumpers, should have been addressed by him. And I think he could have done a better job as far as like police this community. They wouldn't go for that on any of these on YouTube, Twitch, none of them. You know what I mean? Moderate your community.
So if Trump loses again, is he going to complain about the voting again?
I mean, I don't know. We got what happens.
You got a lot of other.
When they tape out that it was.
I think he has a lot of other stuff that he'll probably point to. I mean, I think so. I mostly don't like Trump, and I think that his attitude kind of does lend himself probably to somebody who's going to make excuses, who isn't going to believe that his ego is not going to be able to accept that he lost, and also people accept the bullshit that he sells. I think a lot of what he's selling is bullshit, but I do think that there was a lot of talk. He spoke a lot about America being strong, and things like that, and getting back to us being a strong like manufacturing power and being involved in that, like in business, and just those kind of like those things being said stated in a powerful way, I think did a lot of good for America's confidence on the world stage. Like right now, although I've come around on this, I actually like more, and maybe this is like where hindsight's 2020, and you have to believe in the experts and the people that you put in those positions. But I think Joe Biden's actually handled the Ukraine shit a lot better than what I thought he was handling it at first. You know what I'm saying? So at first I was like, going on, we look like clowns. But then the longer this has gone on, the more I'm like, well, we showed actually a lot of reserve in certain places where we could have escalated the situation. And
some money back so inflation will stop. I'm tired of paying.
I mean, that's not Biden's fault. That's the whole entire world is suffering from that.
No, they're giving money to all that money to Ukraine. So I got 3 points. I got 3 points.
Go for it.
One of them is a little. Anyway, Rosa Parks, right? So believe you can't just believe everything. Rosa Parks, bus boycott back in the 50s, right? Do you know it really wasn't even Rosa Parks? They reenacted that whole thing. If you go look it up, Claudette Colvin was a 15-year-old girl, and that's where they got the whole story from. They didn't use her because she was 15 years old. They said that she was pregnant, and she wasn't pregnant. So what did they do? They went and got Rosa Parks, who was an activist, with Dr. Martin Luther King, and they wanted to use her because she was older. Never got any credit for it. Then also, why are they letting all these? Yeah, that's a point. That's why you, like they say, believe half of what you see and none of what you hear.
But I definitely would want to fact check that. But second, in terms of the optics, that's a smart political move, 100%. It's way smarter to use Rosa Parks than a 15-year-old pregnant girl. Like in terms of the optics, it's so much smarter to do that. I'm just saying, like,
but she still doesn't get any credit till today, and that was 70, 80 years ago. Next,
give her credit. Fact check.
Why are they letting all their illegals in? Why are they letting all their illegals in? They're letting all their illegals in basically to replace the black vote. That's what they're doing. Oh, you want to come to America? Come on over here. And then the Brazilians, I think it was the Brazilians, actually caught wind of what was going on, and then they stopped letting them come over here.
Yeah, but most immigrants are voting red nowadays, and a lot of black people are voting more blue. So why would they try to get rid of the black vote in that way?
They're getting rid of the black vote. That's why they letting all these people come on over here. Go look it up and look up Claudette Colvin. That's her name. Also, did you notice that they've changed the black name was Negro? It was blacks. Then Jesse Jackson made it African American. I ain't never been to Africa. I'm an American. And then now what they're saying is black and brown people. So what Biden did, they took money from the HBCUs that Trump had gave them a whole bunch of money, more than Obama and everybody else. But what they did was they have now changed the name to black and brown people to include everybody else. So the black folks who keep voting for these dumb fools and whatchamacallit said he have Negroes, but he used the other word, voting Democrat for 200 years. But what they've done is they changed it so they can include other people. And now they're including what's called, I think it's called MIs. If you go look at the scholarships and all that, black people aren't getting those scholarships because Biden included those people. Another thing Biden did, which I mean, I can go down the whole list, but when I used to sell insurance, Medicare, people was getting their insulin and they would get to a catastrophic state to where they couldn't afford it. But anyway, President Trump had lowered the cost of insulin. And then day 2 or day 3, while he was in office, Biden raised the price. Now what did he do? Now he goes back and lower the price back down so people can get their insulin, but he make it seem like it's his thing. But anyway, I can go on forever. Those are my points.
Okay. I mean, a lot
Fact check this, by the way. Y'all want the facts on the...
Go for it.
Facts. It was the fact.
Okay, so Claudette Colvin, that is a thing. She did do what you're saying. From what I'm reading here, though, it doesn't necessarily say that they like chose not to use her. This was like kind of like a common thing. So this was happening throughout the South. Like several black women did this, and they were just given fines. And it was only Colvin and also Rosa Parks later who like really, I guess, disputed it past, the fine. Excuse me. But yeah, according to this, it says like it was kind of a common thing. Several women did it. In between them.
Oh, so you're saying that multiple women have done it? It wasn't until Rosa Parks that she just kept on going and then made a big deal that it mattered? Is that what you're saying?
Go watch the video on YouTube with Claudette Colvin when she's talking herself.
Taking all the credit.
I mean, just because she's talking doesn't necessarily mean like I'm gonna believe what she
said. Right, something doesn't mean that it's something different either.
I mean, in your defense, this does say she did it
on multiple accounts.
Well, think about it. Outkast got sued by Rosa Parks. This lady didn't get sued by Rosa Parks. So if she's saying something incorrectly, I feel like Rosa Parks and her family would have sued her.
Wait, are you saying? Well, I'm hearing two different things. So first thing, from what James said, it sounded like they both went through a similar circumstance, but Rosa Parks was the one who made it a big deal because she kept on going with it and all that stuff.
Okay.
Whereas it's not. I mean, so are you saying she didn't do it at all and she just took credit for what Colvin did?
She did do it. She did do it.
Can I make a comparison real quick? So it would be like saying, Colin Kaepernick kneeled. So then the people that saw him do that as a protest and decided to do it as well in protest, as if then it's staged or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It was just a common protest amongst black people at that time, specifically women, I guess. I don't know. It only mentions women. But yeah, it wasn't only Claudette Colvin and it wasn't only Rosa Parks. You are right, though. It said that Claudette did it 9 months before.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, as long as Rosa Parks still did it, and her impact was felt because she did it. If you want to say I don't know if this is true or not. If she was inspired by Claudette, then sure. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But I mean, Rosa Parks still did what she did, and she is the reason why things started kicking off.
I'm not saying like. I'm just saying Claudette Colvin needs credit for it also. That's what I'm saying. But they don't want to.
You could definitely give her credit, but the catalyst was Rosa Parks.
Well, who's all in the history books? Anyway, the point is,
you made it pop, baby. You know what I mean? She's the one that she was the flashpoint. She was the flashpoint where things actually there's change that came from that. You know what I mean? They did the bus boycott after that. Actually,
So in terms of like my real thoughts about in reference to Biden and Trump, for the most part, It took a while, but I do think Biden's actually done a decent job with some of the bills he's passed. Now you could argue some here and there. There's always going to be a here and there. Every president has a here and there that you don't like versus what you do like. But in terms of the net positive, net negative, I think a lot of Dems at the very least think that Biden has been a net positive from a lot of the things he implemented. People are upset with some of the things based off a moral standpoint, but he's actually
Yeah.
did a lot of like productive policies. Whereas in terms of Trump, when I've talked to a lot of people in terms of what he's done, it isn't in. I've actually talked to quite a few people. It seems that Trump, in terms of like being a figure, he's probably the most prolific figure we've had since like Teddy Roosevelt. Like he's very charismatic. But in terms of the policies and the things he's actually done, from what I've seen from a lot of people, he actually hasn't done a lot. So I think that's mostly not necessarily because of Trump, but mostly because he's created so many enemies. Like even some Republicans were like pushing back against Trump. So when you're the president's job is not to pass bills. It's Congress's job. So your job is to get on the side of Congress. So if Trump is always making an enemy out of Congress, it's hard to get the bills you want to pass passed. So if he does get elected into presidency, I think he's going to realize that a little bit better moving forward. His only real competition is DeSantis, and the problem with DeSantis is even though I think he's a better politician by Trump by far, in terms of like actually being productive, in terms of being in office, he's not nearly as charismatic and he's not nearly as well connected. So I don't think he would beat Trump in an election because Trump just is way more connected. A lot of people don't like DeSantis because he doesn't have the political connections that Trump has, the politics game. So DeSantis probably wouldn't win a presidency purely because of that.
Hey,
But
you know what? What I learned out this whole thing is I can care less who the president is. I need my governor to stay right here. So DeSantis, I want you to lose. This coming from me. Right here in Florida, baby. Get the president.
I'll be surprised if he runs. I think he realizes that he's not going to win, so he might not run.
I've seen a commercial with him. Some guy in the commercial put his sticker over a Trump sticker, Trump 2024 sticker. But I haven't officially heard him say that he's running.
Well, he hasn't said it officially. I will say one more thing, James. From what I know right now, Trump, in terms of popularity, is more popular than DeSantis right now. So that is what the popularity polls are saying at the moment. And for some reason, I don't know how, but some reason, this trial is helping his like popularity. I don't know why. I don't understand it, but this trial is helping his popularity for some reason. Yeah, apparently Donald Trump knows that. So apparently,
honestly, none of the Republicans care. Anyway,
I think it's because it makes him a sympathetic figure for some people, which is hard to do. But some people feel like he's being railroaded by the government, and some people that even weren't a supporter of him, this after the fact feels like a little bit of a witch hunt to some people. I think one thing I think that Trump also, before we get off the topic, honestly deserves a little credit for, and this is another thing where it's kind of like giving him credit for the absence of something in a way, but we didn't have any major conflicts with Trump, and I don't know if that had to do with, once again, like him being that share that disease, kept everybody
exactly.
kept the guns put up. But I think that is something to note. Now, in my opinion, one of the reasons I really don't like Trump, and I hope he does, I would take Biden again over Trump. And I agree with what you said, Riddell, as far as like a lot of Biden's policies have actually been pretty decent. But because Trump was so divisive, and this is from a domestic standpoint, there was plenty of chances where he had the opportunity. It was like a video game where you got the choice to go this way or that way, be a good guy or bad guy. And it's like he always chose the bad route. You know, he wanted to be that outlaw in Red Dead Redemption. It's like, now we need the president to be the hero, and it's the time for you to bring us closer together. And he almost always chose to not do that. Whether he felt like it was because he was that was right or whatever, that would probably be his justification. But, you know, I disagree with that as far as like that's what his role is.
Yeah, there's a media propaganda saying he didn't denounce he did the mess right there on stage. Same thing with Biden. He did the eulogy for Senator Byrd, who was a known racist and part of the KKK. Definitely 100% go fact check it.
Or
And he didn't want his kids playing with the roaches and all this crazy mess rubbing on his leg, and the 3,000 times he's plagiarized other people's stuff. And he supposedly finished top of his class and finished damn almost bottom 2 of his class. All the lies over the years. He's been in politics for over 50 years.
True.
Trump been in politics for 4 years, basically.
Yeah.
And he's had a negative effect on black people because the 94 crime bill. He got on stage and said, "Oh well, we couldn't do nothing. Him and Obama couldn't do nothing about the 94 crime bill." He get in first day in office, he did like 3,000 things. His first couple days in office, he still ain't did nothing about the crime bill. And Harris, she held people in prison in California.
Yeah, she's terrible.
She had evidence that the state made up, and she had free labor over there. So when did Trump do all that? Stop it.
Hey, I will say this. Kamala's
I mean, he
terrible.
was a party to it. Technically.
I think we all know Kamala's terrible. She's horrible. As for Biden, I think there could be an argument. There's a legit argument that could be made that Trump does more for black people than Biden. I'm not against that argument. I am not against that argument by any means.
What's the fact?
Interesting.
With that said,
all right, I disagree. That's another debate for another time. Prepare for that, but I think that's probably way off base.
I mean, I don't really care. I personally don't. I personally don't care who president is in favor for what group. As I just care about what policies they're implementing and if that's productive for American society. That's like where I come from when it comes to these stuff.
Agree.
But this is the last topic of discussion. I think this will be interesting.
Nice.
And I'm over here killing y'all in this debate. Okay, cool.
Hey, but as you guys can see, if you guys are listening to the podcast episode, as you can see, like the points I was doing was definitely in contrast to a lot of what Kent was saying, and even in contrast to what James was saying. But like, oh my goodness, we don't all hate each other. It's crazy. You could have a absolute disagreement with everything that was said, but you can't hate each other. You don't have to hate each other. It's possible. It's crazy. It's possible. But all right, last thing in reference to abortion. So what do we think about abortion in America?
So for me, I think that it is another one of those hot button issues. I think that a woman should have a right to choose to a certain extent. I think that, so my perspective on this is it shouldn't go as far as like the 9 month or 8 month or 7 month point. I would be interested in having a conversation as to when we think that cutoff should be, if you guys think it should even be on the table at all. But I think that's really where the nuance of this conversation comes, in my opinion. I think it's hard to make a conversation for a woman not to have the right at all. But I'd like to hear either of you guys make that argument if you do have that point of view.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I believe there's like 2 or 3 ways to get an abortion. You got rape. My bad. You got the R word, incest, and I can't think of any more right now, but because at the end of the day, you know what you did. You know if you had unprotected sex, you know what I'm saying? You know what you did. So why are you gonna kill a soul because you know what you did? And then also, but the way everything goes around, let's say, okay, you did not, you know what I'm saying? Oh, I ain't gonna say did not, but anyway, I think the father also, if you're gonna allow abortion, then the father should be able to have some say so as well. And if the woman decides to keep this baby, then he can go out the baby life and not be a part of it, and you can't put him on child support.
Disagree with that as well.
I know you do, but it takes 2 people to make the baby. So if the male's not there, there's no baby. If the female's not there, there's no baby. So if yes, it's going to cause more people to be on welfare and all that stuff, whatever you're going to say. At the end of the day, you know what you did when you laid down there. You know what the possibilities were when you laid down there. So if this guy don't want the baby, because you can choose if you want to keep the baby, he can choose if he want to father that baby.
Yeah, I disagree. Riddell, I want to hear your point of view on it, brother, before we get arguing. I definitely have a lot to say.
All right, so the extreme, I don't want to go too extreme for the lefty side because sometimes they just make absolutely no sense. So I won't go as far as saying third trimester abortion should be okay. I don't think there's any logical founding for that case, except if it's some dire medical issue, which is very, 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 very rare. But with that said, in terms of the lefty point of view, I think for the most part, when it comes to abortion, like, we need to kind of be realistic on what America is. America is a pro-sex country. It's extremely pro-sex to the point where if you're not thinking about sex at 16, you're lying to yourself. We are extremely pro-sex in terms of like wanting to have sex, doing it for enjoyment, doing it for pleasure, all that stuff. And in these situations, like, accidents happen. I mean, they do. Accidents happen. A condom breaks. Birth support, the birth support doesn't work. And the condoms don't even have a 100% effective rate. You know, there's that 99.9.01%. Hey man, 0.01% is still percent. So when it comes down to it, in those situations where, you know, you didn't want to do it, you did it for pleasure, but it kind of went too far. In those situations, these women should have the right to have an abortion in the first and second trimester. Like, at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, these babies are not formed. They can't feel pain or anything. They're not, you know, they don't necessarily, you know, have cognizant conscious yet. So they're not feeling anything, and it will be terrible. It'll be terrible for these babies to live in a world where they weren't wanted in the first place. That's not going to help the baby. That's not going to help the parent. That's not going to help anybody. Nobody's going to care. So these situations, and unless there's some rich guy that wants it, like Angelina Jolie, or so, then nobody's going to care about this baby. And we know that even like the foster care system is extremely flawed. Or even people say, oh, put it up for adoption. Like, we know inherently that the adoption system is not a good system in terms of, like, there are some people can get out of it, but it's very flawed. It's a very, very bad system. It's very inefficient. So it's just better for, you know, do what you got to do, live your life, and once you're ready to have kids, we'll have kids.
Yeah, I want to challenge your point of view here as far as, like,
I'm ready.
So, at what point does the baby in the mother after conception have a soul?
What you mean? When does the baby have a soul? As soon as it enters that age.
Okay, so as soon as there's like, so is it at that point you think the pregnancy shouldn't be able to be terminated? Like a day after pill should be off the record. Like, you shouldn't be allowed to do that.
Take the day after pill because you don't know. At least at that point, you don't even know if you're pregnant.
Okay, so what is that? I don't know. That's like plausible deniability on an abortion. Like, what does that even mean? That's like confusing.
That means you know. And I don't agree with it at all. You know what I'm saying? If you're gonna have a baby, you're gonna have a baby. It is what it is.
Stand on it and say that shouldn't be allowed if that's how you feel. But I'm challenging your thought process here, because if the reason is because the person doesn't know, the reason they're taking the pill is to get rid of the baby, regardless if they know or not. The purpose that they're taking it, their intention is to get rid of baby. So same thing. Yep. So what's your opinion on that?
They better take it that next day. It is what it is. But do I agree? No, I don't agree. I do not agree. No, not at all. But once you know you're pregnant, then that's even worse. But no, okay, take the pill away. Take that whole pill away. You shouldn't have sex then.
Then could we agree? So hold on, before we take the pill away, because you were being reasonable, I think you're actually secretly being reasonable. Is it possibly that we're agreeing that there should be things accessible to people that we personally don't necessarily agree with? Does that make sense? Okay, so is it possible that there's things that we personally, our morals don't necessarily align with, but they should be available to the public? Like in this scenario, I'm using this as the example.
I mean, condoms, yes. Birth control, yes, that's fine. You know what I'm saying? But really,
Okay.
really, the Plan B drug shouldn't be. In all
Okay.
reality, it shouldn't be. The the
I feel
the the condom is saying there's no sperm getting in there. If it rips, it rips, and you having a baby, oh well, now you got a baby.
you fucked up. So this is kind of my premise. I think that, look, for me, abortion problem, like when I have a daughter, and when when my partner got pregnant, we weren't necessarily like ready or planned for it, but abortion really didn't align with what I wanted to do, period. But it doesn't mean that I feel like I should be able to put my morals onto somebody else, because I also don't agree with making my dick into a pussy, excuse me. But it's like so there's a lot of things that I think that people should be allowed to do that necessarily, like, for me, it's not the right thing. And abortion probably would never be the right thing for me and my partner. But I think that option should be out there for people within a reasonable amount of time. There's a period, I think, up to 11 weeks in which it's not even a fetus, it's an embryo. So at that point, I think we have a serious conversation within that 11 weeks.
What does that mean? If
Hold
not
on,
a
real
fetus,
quick. Well, hold on. I'll address that, but this is because I really do want to pass this back to you, because I want to address this. This is my main issue with your point of view here, is that you're basically suggesting that we should pass laws based off of your religious ideology in a country that has freedom of religion. So in a way, you're oppressing those who, that's not like, they're, say somebody that's atheist, that's not even against their religion or whatever, people that make that work within their Christian faith. Why should we be passing laws to prohibit that based off things that are like theories, like souls? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why I wanted to clarify if that's why you think you shouldn't be able to have abortion, because it's a soul. I think that's bullshit. I think you shouldn't be able to have an abortion until it's a person. And then we're like, okay, this person inside of you has rights. That's the conversation we should be having, in my opinion. That's the rational conversation. When does the person inside you start to have rights? Not when they start to have a soul, so then you can't perish them unless you don't know. Like, what the fuck is that?
So how does the sperm get to the egg?
Man pumps a woman. I don't know how to say that. Yeah.
I mean, your penis doesn't put the sperm into the egg. How does the sperm get to the egg?
Swims and gets to the egg. And
so they have something. There's something going on, some kind of way that I don't know is God. That thing knows how to swim and make it to the egg. It knows exactly where it's going. It's not going to the rectum. It's not going out. It's not going to the kidneys. It's going to them eggs. So and how does it know how to get the egg?
And you hold up. And in my world, I have no issue with you believing that it's God taking the sperm along to the egg. I have no issue with that if that's what you think. But it's like, let somebody that doesn't.
How does it get there by your opinion? How does it get there? It has to have some kind of just like we got bacteria all over our body all day, every day. That bacteria knows how.
I'm playing. No, but
biology. I mean, I also think a point when it comes down to it in terms of abortion is like, at the end of the day, it's like you can't force a woman to have a kid, right? You can't force a woman.
You can't force to be a father.
But I mean, we're talking about the woman right now, so you can't force her to have a kid. You can't force her to give birth, especially especially in the first or second trimester, when she immediately knows, once she finds out, oh crap, I'm pregnant, and then she wants to get abortion. So in those situations, you're not going to strap her down and force a kid to come out of her, because at that point, like, imagine, yeah, take care of it. Imagine a situation where, your 16-year-old daughter went to have sex, because, we know that happens in high school. Let's be honest with ourselves. And she messed up when it came to, or the guy messed up when it came to putting the condom on, and she got pregnant. So are we now she was like, oh, I want an abortion, I don't want to ruin my entire life. I was like, are we now saying, nope, you're having a kid and you're raising the kid, your life is over now?
I got a family member who had one at 13. True
because it was
story.
right for the other person.
Baby's still here and probably like 10, 15, 10, 12 years old now.
That's great. That
So,
has nothing.
but if you're gonna have these abortions, you're gonna let that happen. Then the father has an option to not be a father. Like we're in this society, we're just taking men out of the whole equation. Just like that same thing.
Can you just address the point, brother? Because you're I want to get to your point about the male right here, but like you're not even actually addressing this point. You're getting off of it. Why the fuck should you be? Well, why should you be forced, or why should we not allow women to get abortions? Period. That point you haven't substantiated that, in my opinion.
Because you can't get around my faith. You're going to try to go around my faith and say, oh, it shouldn't be a faith thing. It is what it is. It's a faith thing with me. And if I that's what it is. So, I mean, I don't have
Wait,
other answer
what
for
is
it.
what does your faith say about abortions?
You don't have them.
You say your faith
No.
say you don't have. Well, then why is rape and incest okay for you to have abortions?
Yeah, that's because, and it's not okay to be honest, but those two instances, that person, well, the incest is one thing because the baby just, we know what can happen, just come out, just retardation. But if you rape a woman, you have forced yourself. She didn't say, come on, oh, I want to have sex, and that there's a possibility to be a baby born. You're saying, I'm going to do what I want to do, and I don't care what you want to do. And then just imagine if she's married. You know what I mean? Now she's having a baby from a rape person, but is it okay? No, it's not okay. You
But you're already
still,
making concessions for other people,
huh?
and you're already making those concessions for those people and their sensibility. So why is it not reasonable to allow people to live and let live? This has nothing to do. This doesn't make you get abortion. You know what I mean?
Because you're saying, okay, let's do this. You are saying you're welcoming it. That's the difference.
That may
In my
not be
opinion.
that may not be the intention. Plenty of people go into sex without the intention of having a baby. That can be a consequence. You're right, but it's like,
from it.
and the thing is, thankfully, medicine has caught up to the point to where people can make that decision when it's necessary for them. I don't know why, based off religion, we should then ignore science advancements. It's safe. It's
so,
brother, but the point,
I do want to say something. So, to kind of move on for the crazy lefty stuff. So, in reference to abortion, I actually have a very nuanced perspective on this. I actually posted a TikTok clip recently in reference to abortion, and I got a lot of like triggered lefties on the comment section, and I was just trolling them because that's what I do. If a crazy lefty or righty comes to my comment section, I will just troll. I'll just troll. So I'm not taking any of you guys serious. So in terms of my perspective on it, 100% third trimesters are super iffy in terms of I think most people don't agree with that. So in reference to abortion though, for the most part, I don't care if you have an abortion. In terms of, I don't have like, I'm not religious by any means, but I don't care in terms of what you do in terms of having an abortion, because inherently, if we're being completely honest, most people don't care about what other people do. They just don't. They don't really care about the baby. But I think there needs to be a realization. I've said this multiple times, that the realization is that when you have an abortion, what you're doing is killing a baby. 100% of the time, you are killing a baby. So the point of this recognition is to realize how you should conduct yourselves in reference to you knowing that if you get pregnant, you will be killing a baby. If you do that, do it. I don't care. But know that you will be killing a baby. You will be ending a future life in the world. So the reason why that distinction is super important is because it will prevent people, it will either prevent people from being careless in terms of sex, or two, it will outright kind of frame out the horrible people who don't care what they do in terms of babies. Like they wouldn't be good mothers anyway if they don't care about human life. So this is just appropriate in terms of human society to establish these differences and these recognitions, because I think when it comes to like pro choice or pro-choice individuals, they try to wiggle their way out of the abortion debate by just saying the baby's not a human. And that's not true. The science does not even support your claim that the baby's not a human. The fetus is a human. The claim that a sperm cell is the same as a egg and a sperm being combined and starting an embryo is one of the stupidest arguments I have ever heard, because it makes absolutely no sense. We know that the life is starting, the life will finish, the life will become a human. So I think that is appropriate in terms of distinction. Now, if you want to go into the meta argument and meta philosophical debate on the actual substance of human consciousness and all that stuff, we can have that debate, sure, whatever, if you want to. But the life of the human has started. The life of the human will continue if not impeded. We all know this. We know it's just like if a seed is planted in the ground and photosynthesis starts, it's going to become a tree. We know it's going to be a tree. If you want to stop it from becoming a tree, then go ahead, but it's going to become a tree. So that's my real position in reference to abortion.
Well, I have some pushback on your point of view if you want to debate your point of view a little bit before
go for it. I love to hear the pushback.
So for me, I wouldn't disagree that it is technically a human, but I think to assume that it would reach the age to be able to be birthed, is a stretch to just assume that. There's a lot of things that can happen, especially towards the beginning of a pregnancy. So when we're talking about the first 8 weeks of a pregnancy, there's a very
wants to.
What was that?
God can.
I'm sorry.
God can kill it.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, when it comes down to medical situations and miscarriages, they do happen. And that actually reinforces my argument. Because if someone has a miscarriage, just think about this. If someone has a miscarriage, is a pro-choice person going to go up to this person and say, that's not a baby anyway, you're fine? Imagine if someone who pro-choice went up to someone who had a miscarriage in the early weeks and was like, that wasn't a human anyway. That would be such a crazy thing to say to a person. That'd be insane.
Well, I think you're talking about we're not talking about it necessarily from a scientific standpoint. We're talking about an emotional attachment that mother had to a fetus or a embryo that they thought was going to be born because they fantasized or whatever. It's all normal. I've had a child. I get it. Once you find out you're pregnant, you're thinking a lot of that shit. So for me, I don't know. I think that there is an argument, and I actually want to pull up exactly what an embryo is. So I think there might be a little hold on real quick. Argument here: an unborn or unhatched offspring in the process of development, in particular a human offspring during the period from approximately the 2nd to the 8th week after fertilization. So that's 8 weeks in. And I think this is a lot of the conversation. And I think initially when we first started talking about this, I said this was, I think this is where the nuance is and where the real conversation is, because, yes, I guess you can have a conversation like what you were saying, Riddell, where you are in theory, you're definitely preventing human life. But I mean, my only argument is to assume that the human life is 100% going to come to be, I wouldn't attach that to this.
I'm not saying human life is going to be. I'm saying that is a human. It's a person. It's 100% a person. That is my stance in terms of this being a human. Unless you want to we can argue the meta philosophical position of, okay, what makes a human? What makes a person? Is it consciousness? Is it this and that? That's 100% a debate I'm willing to have and go in the nuance of that. But in terms of what science is saying, what biology is saying, that is a person.
Well, yeah, so right here, what I'm reading is a human offspring, unborn or unhatched offspring. Right. So to me, once again, I feel like it's something that is not going to be necessarily for me because I'm in a position where I can afford to support a kid or whatever, it's not, you know what I mean? But at that point, when we're talking about an unhatched offspring, I don't know that that's not a situation. If you're in support of things like Plan B, which I'm also in support of,
I don't care if people have abortions, by the way. I think I said that.
And you do.
Just to make sure.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily saying that you are saying that. I'm just making it clear in case I was actually giving you more of an opportunity to provide nuance your take, because I do agree with your premise, but I don't necessarily agree that people shouldn't be able to terminate because really what we're talking about, when do they become their own individual? And a lot of that does have to do with some form of like consciousness for a lot of people, and things of that nature. When the heart's developed is a huge conversation, which I think happens around the 11th week, with as far as chambers and actual valves to the heart. So yeah, go ahead.
You brought up a great point. I'll let Kent respond after this. You brought up a great point, and I think there's an important distinction that just because it's a person doesn't necessarily mean that the all people. I don't believe that all people in every stage of life are equal. I don't believe that. It's nonsense to me. So in this situation, there's certain humans that there are certain people who have more value in terms of life than others. We just know that. If a person is in a coma, they're still living, but the value that they have is very, very, very minimal. It literally takes you to unplug. And so I think, okay, yeah, I think it's a person, but I don't think this embryo, this value is nowhere close to like a baby that's out of the womb. I think their value is way less. So I think there's different values. I think inherently, I do think it's a person, but the value of that person, I think, is just much lower. So the more like, this wouldn't be murder, for example. I think that's the best way to put it. It wouldn't be like murder, but it would be taking the life of a person. It's just the different values to it.
Yeah, I do think it's tough because I think I'm not fully seeing them as their own individual human at the point that we're talking about. So I think that's where, I think that's where the
individual. What about Siamese twins put together, so they're not their own individual human?
Okay, what about them though? What are we asking? Like, should they?
They're together, so they're not their own individual human.
They're two humans.
I mean, the individual human.
God and the devil.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
All right.
Now, I was just going to say, God and the devil are always fighting for souls. And God says that he will always have more souls than the devil. So he may take that baby from that woman while she's still, a couple years ago, my cousin had a miscarriage. So I don't know what the numbers are. Obviously, I'm not God, and he don't have to check in with me. Huh?
You say God's taking babies to fight in his army in a holy war? Is that what you're saying right now?
God said that he will always have more souls than the devil.
Why is it a game? You know what I'm saying? That's where I'm confused by your logic that's happening right now. But
you can't understand how God thinks, bro. You can't.
I'm not godly.
Yeah, you never know what. But then sometimes, you never know what molecule could have messed up, or from something that they drank or eaten or something like that. So, and God said, all right, well, we're not going to have this baby. And then obviously we know some babies are born with, different ailments. But anyway.
Yeah. I think a important distinction, or I think that will help kind of frame my position in reference to what you're saying, James, is that I don't think all humans have individual rights anyway. I don't think that's true. So I think most humans have individual rights, but like, we can bring out the examples. Like I said, a person who's in a coma, that person doesn't have individual rights at that point. Like, their rights is depending on the person taking care of them or the hospital taking care of them and deciding what they want to do with the person, right? So there are situations out there where, we know it's a person, we know it's an individual human. That doesn't mean they necessarily have rights. So in this situation, the embryo, I'm saying it's a person, but I don't think it has individual rights. I don't think until, at the very least, bare minimum, third trimester, then you can say it has individual rights. And you can even argue that not until it's born. You could even argue not until it's a connaissant kid that it doesn't have individual rights. And I'm willing to have that debate. But that just coincides with your point on like, okay, I don't think think of it as an individual person in that sense. I was like, I'm sure. I'm not in disagreement with that.
No, I like you put that real quick, because I mean, that just to like put a bow on it real quick. I actually like how you put that. That makes a lot of sense as far as like comparing it to a person in a coma, where literally a family member may have to make a medical decision on that person's behalf. similar kind of situation in this case. So yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting way to frame it. I haven't thought about it like that. So I mean, I like that perspective. I think we're closer on that than I thought. So Gates, but I want to let you cook,
Well,
man.
I
Whatever.
got a little pushback on that one.
Go
How
for
can
it.
you say that the person in a coma doesn't have any rights?
They
Didn't
don't.
say
They're not
any.
Because they do
cognizant.
have rights.
And
Because sometimes
go ahead.
they've
Go ahead.
written down what they wanted if that situation happens. And some of them haven't written down what they wanted, but they still have rights. You can't just go up and, put a knife in them
True. That's
and
actually a
end
great.
it.
True. That's a great point in terms of like we don't want people to just do whatever they want to the coma patient, right? And it's kind of the similar in terms of like an embryo. We don't want this person. Okay, I'm gonna take your embryo out, and then oh, you don't care what I do with it? I'm gonna do some crazy stuff. I'm gonna do some crazy experiments on this embryo. Matter of fact, I'm gonna turn this into the Hulk moving forward. And we don't want people to do crazy stuff like that, right? It's not like okay, the cells are done. I could do whatever I want with the cells. Now, some mothers co-sign stem cells. That does happen, but obviously you need a cosign from who? The mother. In the term of the coma patient, you would need a cosign from who? The caretaker before you do anything to the coma patient. So similarly, like there
Well,
are
that's it.
innate rights to living things, period. Those innate rights will always exist. But in terms of them being able to make decisions for themselves in terms of the final result of how their life will, continue or end, when you're a coma patient, you can't you won't be able to choose. We can't just keep you there forever.
Yeah,
Hopefully that
well,
makes sense.
um, like in the field that I work in, happens every once in a while where a person come in and they don't have a DNR, do not resuscitate, and they try to get one super fast as they possibly can, or to figure out what they want to do. Because if that person codes, they're gonna always bring them back. They all try to anyway, attempt to bring them back until because that person can't talk for themselves. They didn't get a POA or a power of attorney to talk for them. They didn't write it down anywhere what they wanted, so they're gonna always treat that person as if that person wants to be saved.
Okay, well
So
now we're talking about the legal situation regarding that. I'm talking about more of like my moral standing in reference to the discussion at hand. In terms of the legal backing, then that's fine if you there's a legal situation where you can't do such and such and such and such and such. But when we kind of extend it further and further apart, just because this person says I don't want to, et cetera, the hospital's not going to keep them there forever. That just won't happen. We know this, especially when they know for a fact this person will never gain consciousness.
well, that Terry Shavo, they had him there for years, going between the parents and the husband.
Yeah.
And some families are different, bro. They will wait until this person dies naturally.
Oh,
Some parents are different.
yeah. Got to have long money for that.
Facts. You definitely have
Yeah,
to have cat or GoFundMe the heck out of it. GoFundMe for sure.
that was that
Um,
was that was over a decade, I
hey,
think.
respect,
Terry Chavo.
That problem in it. But no, I
respect.
mean, I just wanted to kind of play devil's advocate. I did
No,
understand
I
what you were
understand.
saying, and I, for the most part, do agree with what you were saying, though.
No, that's fine. Because I think the important thing, I think this is the most important message in reference to this conversation, is that when you have these conversations with conflicting viewpoints, you can do one of two things. Either you can help the other person understand your position, or two, you can evolve your position more. Because at the end of the day, people for some reason think that just because they know this one fact that now they know everything, and that is just not the case. You won't be able to know things unless you actually talk to people. Even research inherently is not good enough because you need those devil advocate questions, you need those counter questions to really try to evolve. Okay, is this really what I think, or am I just
Yeah,
talking out of my ass right now? So I
uh,
think most people just be talking out their ass. We know that, especially social media warriors. So, that's why these conversations are important. And that's why I have a
Agree.
Discord that anybody could join. And if you want the smoke, I am willing to have the smoke. Come to my Discord. You want to debate me? I'm here for the debate constantly. I know most people want to be me anyway, so it is what it is. But
Yeah.
I'm ready for that smoke.
Well, you mentioned something when we first started connecting about a debate panel, and that might be something you want to do at some point. So
Yeah,
uh,
definitely want to do that something in the
but
future. 100% would be
I'm with him.
interesting.
Yeah, if you need a somebody that thinks they're moderate but in their heart is a lefty, call up your boy. I'll be there.
You're definitely left center. If I'm being honest, you're 100% left center. You are for sure
Yeah,
left center.
I feel that way.
Left center. And I think
Yeah.
Kent is like not extreme right. I think he's right. I think he's like
Okay,
the neutral right. I think he's neutral
perfectly right.
perfectly right. I don't think he's far right. I think he realized that some far rights are weirdos. So I think that's
Yeah, yeah, that's a fair take. This was dope. This was fun.
a great conversation. Of course,
Yeah.
their information it will be on the website and it will be in the description. Of course, in terms of you can check their podcasts out and all that stuff. You can check out their information. Maybe one day I'll come on their podcast, talk about some issues, talk about some sports. And speaking of sports, let me check some scores right now. Let me
Oh, yeah,
see
what's going-
what scores are going on at the moment.
Let's get some hot
Heat.
takes. You want to hear?
Heat are beating on the Knicks. I never trusted the Knicks. They ain't, Jimmy Butler's hit too much of a him. What were you saying?
Man,
Yeah.
I tell
For him.
you,
Go ahead, Ken.
man, I tell you, honestly, I didn't believe in the Heat at all.
I
And
agree.
because their team is made up of, other than Jimmy Butler, it's like, who are you? Where did you come from? Did you even play in high school? And then they go out there and ball. So I
Yeah,
think you got to get a lot of credit too.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're playing with Michael Jordan's son, you know, it makes things easier. So
That's what they. That's what they say.
Yeah, the Heat. So the Heat and the Knicks. That's definitely. I thought that was going to be a way more competitive series. The Heat being able to come through, and even the game without Jimmy Butler be competitive, like really impressive. But the Heat, every time they come through, when they had their championship run and they lost in the finals, they were a surprise team at that point. So they've just been consistent. Spoelstra deserves a lot of credit. Pat Riley, deserves a lot of credit. That's just a well-run organization.
Jimmy Butler
Oh, yeah.
deserves most of the credit, though. He's him. He's absolutely him. Will he beat the Celtics this time around? I don't know. I have no idea. It was hard to say. Or the
I think
Sixers.
it's going to be the finals. Going to be the Celtics and the Lakers.
No, I don't want to see. I'm not going to watch the finals if that happens. I'm not rooting for either team. I don't.
Or
care.
76 the Lakers, but I'm thinking Celtics.
If the Sixers
Lakers.
go, I'll root for the Sixers or the Heat. If
Gates
the Heat
is
go, I'm sure for Jimmy Butler.
I hate to say it.
This is an important part for just to promote Gates' channel, Gates Open Media. If you are a LeBron hater, that is your home. Go check him out. If you're reasonable, sit politics with your boy. If you're a rational human being, but if you hate LeBron, you just want to see somebody's going to go live whenever LeBron's doing great, whenever LeBron's doing bad, whenever LeBron's on the news. That's Gates Open Media. It's the LeBron channel.
I call it when I see a quitter. I call it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Hey man,
he ain't gonna win the MVP if they do win the championship.
Yeah,
you know what?
Davis will win FMVP.
I almost want them to win the championship and Anthony Davis get the MVP. Now that'll be funny. That's what needs to happen.
And he still might win it because LeBron will just get votes. I'm not a LeBron hater, but I hate his fans, so that's my take in reference.
Fair enough. No, that's fair.
I kind of like LeBron. I actually, I think he's a good person. He's a better person than Michael Jordan. Like Michael Jordan's a little dickhead, but LeBron James is actually a good person.
I don't know. LeBron be changing narratives, but what I do like about LeBron, real talk, is he has his posse. You know what I'm saying? Now the guys he played ball with in high school, he put them in position, not giving them anything like Kevin Garnett. He actually put them guys in college, or I don't know if they went to college or not, but anyway, he put them guys in position for them to grow and build their own wealth, and then also obviously help him and his team. So that's something you don't see a lot.
He takes care of his people. He takes care of his community too. Yeah, like you said. So he takes care of his kids. Like he's a good person. Like I don't agree with a lot of the things he says, but like he's a good person. Takes care of his people. Takes care of his community. He's a good role model. So great things.
Agreed.
100%.
Yeah, I loved Let's end it there, brother. LeBron. We all agree he's a great guy, right?
He's a great guy, but Steph is him, so I'm rooting for Steph.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's my club. Me too. But I think the
Yeah.
Lakers. It's all rigged anyway. The Lakers gonna win it.
Hopefully
Yeah,
not.
here he goes.
So hopefully not. All right, so that is all we got for today. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Of course, y'all have a good one. Rate it 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Take care and peace.